Hello and welcome to this episode of Community Voices Uganda here on Civic Space TV. My name is Philip Melissa, and here on today we are having an examination of the governance, the democracy, and the space available for citizens of this beautiful country, Uganda, to participate in public life and indeed all the activities that pertain of our public activity as citizens of this country. And as we head into the general elections, that is barely 2 weeks around the corner, we want to really look at what the state of civil liberties in our country, Uganda, is, but also broadly looking at the question of political prisoners in the country, and certainly paying specific attention to the most recent arrest of the executive director of the Center for Constitutional Governance, and that is Dr. Sarah Bireete, and indeed make sense of what all this means for one, our democracy, for our governance, for our respect to civil liberties, and widening it more to civil rights as well, and in going forward, drawing recommendations for what best practice should be as far as respect to this entity of life is concerned. Now, joining me on that conversation is a panel of distinguished citizens of the Republic of Uganda who are, one, very knowledgeable, but also very active in these spaces, and some of them have actually been victims of repression, victims of boundaries that are created by the different institutions of government in our country. And they are here to share with us their knowledge, their experience, but also what they think should be done to make sure that Uganda is on the right trajectory as far as respect to the democratic principles are concerned, and indeed creating a better country that serves every citizen of Uganda. I will invite them to say hello to us, and certainly we head into the depth of the conversation. I will start with a social justice lawyer. She should have been a presidential candidate in the campaigns are underway, and certainly on 15th should have her name should have been on the ballot paper, but because of many reasons, some of which could have been not in her control, she is not there. But certainly her voice stands out in areas of social justice, and indeed contributing to what Uganda should look like going forward. And that is Council Yvonne Bambara. Council, greetings. Welcome to the conversation.
Greetings, Philip. Thank you so much for hosting us today morning. You'll excuse me, I'm not able to use my video. My phone settings are a bit stringent, so I'm not able to put it in landscape. It's getting stuck in portrait. So you'll excuse me if I'm not able to put on my video today. Thank you for hosting us today. You've done quite an extensive introduction. And for now, I'll just greet everyone who is tuned in.
All right. Thank you, Yvonne, for joining us. And we are very honored that you're here, and certainly looking forward for what you're going to share with us today. And I, too, on this call, I have Council Douglas Drake Onen. Drake is the Human Rights Officer at the Center for Constitutional Governance, but also he is an active leader in the youth spaces of the country, and certainly contributing to youth discourse in the Republic of Uganda. Drake, greetings. You're welcome to the conversation.
Hello, good morning to you all. Thank you very much, Felix, for the wonderful introduction, and to all the colleagues of the call for joining this very timely conversation as we edge towards elections. My name is Douglas Drekonen, Human Rights Officer at the Center for Constitutional Governance, and I'm looking forward to sharing my 2 cents of thoughts on this very interesting but very heartbreaking conversation regarding not only civil liberties in this country, but also putting into context the recent arrest, but also detention of our executive director, Dr. Sarah Bireete, and other political prisoners. Looking forward to having an interesting conversation with you all, and good morning once again.
All right. Thank you, Drake. And you see, because you are from the Center for Constitutional Governance, permit me start with you. And just in quite brief terms, what is the situation like with the Center for Constitutional Governance? What is the latest we can pick from you from the arrest of Dr. Sarah Bireete, and what is actually happening at the today?
Right. Thank you very much once again, Philip. First and foremost, what we need to note that on the 30th of December 2025, Dr. Sarah Bireete at her premises was surrounded by both army and police officials who, of course, went ahead and arrested her from her home. And the information that we gathered, certain gadgets, particularly two phones from the children, but also one house phone was taken away from her and the family. And that's the day that she was arrested. She was, of course, taken to Natete police station as of 30th. I had the privilege to go to the police station on that day that she was arrested in the evening, and I saw her before they transferred her to her detention room. Before that moment, of course, after searching her, everyone else was therefore not allowed to have access to her. But as of 31st, as you're aware, Philip, you were on ground at Natete police station, and there was a lot of uncertainty with what is to happen and what next. And of course, according to law, you're not supposed to hold someone in detention for more than 48 hours. But as we are all aware, she was in custody or detention from 31st up to 2nd of January 2026. Of course, the argument is that 1st January is a public holiday, so definitely doesn't count. But irrespective, she was in custody for 72 hours, as I gather. And yesterday, on Friday, that was 2nd of January, she was arraigned before court in Uganda Road. And she was, of course, that's the moment all of us had the opportunity to listen to the charge inside the courtroom. And the charge was obtaining and sharing of personal data. I know we shall have this conversation in detail. And the able legal team, of course, succinctly and elaboratively talked about put forward a bail application with very strong reasons as to why they should grant Dr. Sarah Bireete bail. But of course, you are also in that courtroom with all the justifications, with all the reasons for her to be granted bail and all the distinguished sureties that were present in court. The magistrate went ahead, that is Miss Winnie Nancha went ahead and said we shall listen to they are giving the state up to 21st of January to respond to the bail application. A very baseless but senseless reason as to why you cannot listen to a bail application. Yet, of course, all of us know it's practice. It's practice in courts of law, but also in the legal fraternity to listen to the bail application when someone is arraigned before court. But straightforward to your question as regards to what's the situation like at the Center for Constitutional Governance. One thing I must put out there to the public is Dr. Sarah Bireete is a resolved and resilient woman. Even when we had the opportunity to meet, to have a conversation with her as before she was arraigned before court on 2nd of January, Philip, I was there with you. She went ahead and said, work must be going on and we need to keep pushing. The situation we are in as young people in this call, and also the experience that we have seen with Dr. Sarah Bireete is one that is alarming. Today is Dr. Sarah Bireete, tomorrow can be me, can be you, can be anyone else. So definitely we ought to speak up. But at the moment at the Center for Constitutional Governance, we are determined more than before to continue doing the work that we do. The situation, yes, is very, it's unfortunate that we have lost our executive director, but of course, we are determined to continue doing the work that we do, that is being a constitutional watchdog, and we shall not break down. I know the state wants our spirits to break down, but we are now more than ever resolved to even keep on doing what we're doing because it shows that what we're doing matters and it's a threat. So nonetheless, I'm looking forward to having this conversation, but that is the situation from what happened and also the situation at the organization. But in a nutshell, we are determined, we are resolved, and we are ready to continue doing the work. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Greg, for bringing us up to speed as far as what the situation is like and indeed telling us, taking us through the events that transpired from the day of arrest to where we are and certainly getting to understand that the organization is actually moving and work should continue as should be regardless of the challenges that come in between. And Yvonne, I want to pick on you from there. See, an arrest, and you had Drake take us through the process from how the police and sister security agencies went to Dr. Sarah's home, to her arrest, to the denial of access to members of the family, to the legal team, to even basic things like food. It was a hassle to have this go through. And broadly speaking, I want to hear, looking at, for example, this case, but also the many cases we've heard about in this country, what would be your assessment of what then becomes the state of civil liberties in this country? And in precise terms, do you think that Uganda would be one of the countries that, as a member of the United Nations, would boast of a good record in terms of respect to civil liberties in our country? Yvonne.
I do not think Uganda cares about boasting of civil liberties to any international bodies. I think they've mastered a way to meander around it by definitely producing reports that undermine the situation on ground. But also, it's for us to recognize that this is not a particularly a different or unique type of election cycle. I think we've seen this level of violence, we've seen this level of civil unrest every election cycle we've had for as far back as under Museveni, as far back as I think 2006 or slightly even earlier, 2001, with the arrests of Besigye, of supporters, with the crackdown of dissenting voices and opinions. So I think again it's not unique. I think maybe what fooled us from the beginning is the fact that we had the Minister of Constitutional Affairs speaking to Ugandans and telling us that for once Uganda is going to have a peaceful election. Maybe those first few weeks where we saw a bit of peace in terms of campaigns, in terms of Ugandans being able to support whichever presidential candidates that they wanted, that we got fooled that maybe this particular election cycle would be a bit different. But then again, we saw a few weeks later, this wasn't the case. So there's definitely a worsening civic and political space with increasingly constrained civic with an increasingly constrained civic environment as we the 2026 elections. And of course, we are seeing an increase in crackdown on dissent with, suppression of opposition voices. Of course, civil society actors continuously bearing the brunt of the regime, but also with people such as journalists and editors and human rights defenders also facing a similar situation. And of course, we are seeing arbitrary arrests following Kizza Besigye. Now, Sarah Bireete's case has also come up where the regime is not even caring to follow the law. So it's not even just the fact that these civil liberties are being disrespected. It's the fact that, there's disregard for the law to enter into a state of lawlessness, and of course contributing largely to the death of a constitution, because majority of these rights that are being infringed on are enshrined in the constitution. But we are dealing with a regime that does not care. We are dealing with a regime that does not feel it needs to respect its citizens. It does not feel that at the end of the day what they do to citizens or to this country matters. So we feel it's very important for us to bring out that. And of course, it hasn't been just been attributed to human rights defenders or top leadership position candidates, but also supporters as well. We've been seeing a lot of supporters for NUP being charged under very hideous charges. The laws of drilling that are as old as colonial times that have been maintained definitely by the regime just to entrench themselves in power, but also laws like the one they've just charged Sarah with, that is really as ambiguous and vague as possible. But of course, these are tactics that the government uses over and over to punish anyone who speaks out against it, to punish anyone who tries to do any forms of civic education that they particularly refuse to do a majority of the elections, but also completely, totally destroying the civic environment by completely disregarding the law to throw people behind jail without any due process, without following procedural processes, or without respecting any forms of human rights. states. So it's definitely worsening. We are going through an environment again that is going through the usual crackdowns, just like any other elections. And I think it really contributes to the level of voter apathy that we're seeing in the country right now. And the death of institutions, it's very absurd to see that an institution like the judiciary that should be independent to pass, to pass justice is following orders of the executive. Why should someone have to wait over 20 days to get a bail hearing? What is that about? This should take you a few hours to deliver. But for someone to just sit there, they are carrying out the orders of the executive, shows that Uganda no longer has any functional systems. It no longer follows the law, and definitely no longer respects the citizens that put them into power.
All right. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for that. And we are joined by Council Tumusime Kakuru. And Council, thank you so much for joining us. And certainly, I know that you are very close to this particular case that we're talking about involving Dr. Sarah Bireete. And I am also sure that you are present at court. And as you join in on us, I want you to speak to us specifically your assessment of what actually transpired at at Buganda Road Court. And I've seen statements from the Vice President of the Uganda Law Society. I've seen Council Jude Byamukama, who led the team that went in there to defend Dr. Sarah Bireete, and they seem not to be, first of all, in agreement with the decision of the magistrate, Chief Magistrate Winnie Nancha, but also they seem to say that the entire process was not actually in order. Council, I want to take your assessment of the entire process. Take us to court and tell us what transpired and what you think of that entire process as it unfolded. Council Kakuru.
Good morning, Philip and colleagues. I'm happy to join you. So I had some internet connection. That's why I joined in a bit late. But yesterday we were at court for Dr. Sarah, and the entire process, as you said, it was a sham process. This is not a clear process in the normal trial. And as the judiciary, I think this was just the last nail on what we have talked about always about persecution, not prosecution. Because in the first place, when we were at court, we had a standover so that we can upload the documents for Sarah's bail application, which the magistrate did not object to. But appearing back to court, led by Council Jude, we presented our bail application in the simplest terms, like any person can say. After our application, instead of the prosecution making a response, the prosecution requested for time to prepare and make a reply to a bail application. This is a magistrate court bail application. It was even not written. It was oral. I don't know what they are going to think about to reply, whether they are going to reply to the introductory letters or the national IDs. I don't know. But also, the way the magistrate adjourned this matter, because normally when a person is on remand, the law provides that at least the remand period should be 2 weeks. That is 14 days. But it was so unfortunate that the magistrate, I don't know whether it was her reasoning or something, she thought the prosecution needed 20 days. That is 3 weeks to make a reply to a simple bail application. It is so unfortunate to us that the judiciary has now turned into a machinery that helps the state machinery in prosecuting the political opponents. Because
Council Kakuru, briefly, if you allow me there, because when you say prosecution requested for time and the magistrate gave in 20 days. So to be specific, are you saying there were no clear explanations that were given to you as lawyers of the accused as to why the magistrate chose it to be 20 days, not even the 14 that are prescribed, but also not even the fewer, like Yvonne tells us that it could even have taken a few hours. Were there any major reasons that were given to you as to why they chose 20 days?
There was no reason, but remember we had sought for a standover for up to like 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. because this bail application did not have any document that didn't much to think about. And also, we thought that from like 1 p.m. to like 3 p.m., the prosecution can prepare and make a response to the bail application, which failed. I don't think there is something there was no reason given as to why the 3 weeks would be granted to the prosecution for a bail application of that nature. You see, even in High Court, when we do formal applications, it does not even take 2 weeks to make a response. But as we know, they used the arm of the judiciary and that judicial officer to justify why Salah should be out of the public until after voting. We had that one in mind, that their intention was to keep Sarah out of the public. And in fact, she was just, I think this is a simple conviction of 20 days. Because why would someone, actually the judiciary ignored something much important and crucial, that a bail application, bail can be discretional. It does not require a state to respond or not. And also, if the state has any issues, even when the bail has been granted, the state has that opportunity to make any report so that the bail conditions can be changed or the bail itself can be cancelled in case of any falsehood. But this was not the case, and actually the judicial officer now acted as a prosecutor in bargaining for how much time they need. Because the prosecutor only requested for time to make a formal reply. And she did not even specify what time. So you see, the intention of the judicial officer adjourning the matter to the 21st was deliberate, that she intended that Sarah should be in custody for up after elections. Then that's when we can maybe go again to argue her case. So it was so unfortunate in that way. And it's a risk to many of us, because if you see someone like the executive director of Center for Constitutional Governance being arrested and charged with, under data protection, obtaining and sharing information, electoral commission information, which electoral commission is a public entity, that its information was shared to the public, so we had to scrutinize it. For example, why they are fearing much of this is that actually they had made multiple entries in these matters, in this they had made multiple entries in the voters register, which has been just identified by many people. I happen to also be one of the lawyers for National Unity Platform. And I remember this specific week, we had a press conference where the Secretary General was addressing the multiple entries with even clear guide evidences. So because Sarah commented on such issues and against the Electoral Commission, that's why she ended up there. The other issue is that the Electoral Commission has been in panic, because now we don't know who complained that Sarah shared information to the public. And if it is the Electoral Commission, what would be the purpose of it sharing the voter register with the public? I thought it was shared for scrutiny, public scrutiny. But where they fear even the scrutiny from the public, then it makes the entire process a sham.
But counsel, again, another outrageous comment you make. When you say you do not know who complained, is it such so that you have a person in custody and they appeared before court, but there is no disclosed complaint, and as for why she was arrested, and indeed the reasons, of course, that now we know it is, they say, obtaining or sharing personal data?
Yes, Philip. As I told you, we don't even with the lawyers, even how the accused person doesn't know the complainant, and it is a provision of the law under the Magistrates Court Act, Section 119, that it is a requirement, and it is a mandatory requirement that a complainant shall appear in court whenever the matter comes up. But this time we did not see a complainant, we did not see any person, so we just saw a charge that is not even detailed, including the entire particulars of the offense charged with. So it makes it all complicated. And where actually under the law, where the complainant fails to turn up when the matter is called up, specifically the criminal matters, it is the requirement of the law that such a charge should be discontinued and dismissed for want of prosecution. Because if you have complained of something criminal against me, you should be there to follow the proceedings and see me being tried in courts of law, which did not happen. And of course, as we know, many political matters of this nature, we do not even know the complainants. For example, these people who are charged with unlawful drilling at Kawempe Court, that NUP group. Up to now, it is coming to 4 months, but we have not known any complainant and we have not seen any. But because of the politics in the judiciary as of late, they take everything normal and they proceed as if nothing has happened because they are following some, superior orders. It is so strange for us, the practitioners, and I think it is much strange for even the public.
All right. Thank you so much, Councillor Tumsime, for bringing us to speed, but also putting down those very unclear terms and circumstances that were at the court, and indeed, up to this time, not knowing who actually the complainant in this matter is. But Drake, I want to come back to you and see, we are talking about Dr. Sarah Bireete here, but she's just one of the millions of citizens of this Republic of Uganda. And right now we know that she doesn't have her freedom to speak to whoever she wants to speak to. She's in cells somewhere, and a lot of things that have happened just within these days, but also that are bound to happen in the days that she's going to be inside, could affect any other person, like you mentioned earlier. And I would want, in your view, you're a human rights officer at CCG, and you deal with people at all levels. You have a very big constituents of university students. You have a constituents of people within the communities that we interact with at professional and institutional level, and all those. When you talk to those people, what would be your assessment of how much they are actually aware of their civil liberties, in terms of whether you're talking about freedom of expression, whether you're talking about freedom of association, whether you talk about we are in the electoral season, you have a right to participate in the electoral processes, and the very many other rights and freedoms that are available for a citizen of Uganda. Are people aware of their freedoms, of their liberties? And certainly, what are some of the threats you see in your work that could injure these liberties and freedoms for the people that you interact with at your official level? Yes, Drake.
All right. What we need to note, and is something that I think cuts across, is to respond to your question fast forward, is most or majority of Ugandans do not know their rights and freedoms. If they did, they would have, of course, spoken up and taken it to the streets. But alas, here is where we are. And the other thing is the arrest of Dr. Sarah Bireete and other political prisoners, but particularly with of interest, Dr. Sarah Bireete's arrest. She is a voice of many Ugandans who, of course, as I say, do not know their rights. And of course, in a democracy like ours today, you need voices like the ones of Dr. Sarah Bireete. You need voices like that of Yvonne. You need voices like that of Tumsime. Your voice, my voice. And if the voices of those individuals who, first of all, know the law, who know the rights and freedoms of them themselves, but also the community at large, you need those voices to help the other masses who do not know their rights and freedoms to speak up. But let's just get perspective to the conversation that we have today. I think this NRM government, when they came into power in 1986, their way or their mode of governing Ugandans has been on a threefold legitimacy tool. One, this government has used or is using political violence as a way of getting legitimacy from Ugandans. Two, the government is using bribery. And three, this government is using repression. But let me just analyze you that quickly and relate it back to why exactly we need voices like that of Sarah Bireete, and of course right now that are being silenced, and why exactly we need to have Ugandans involved, the fact that they do not know their rights and freedoms. Ever since 1986, cognizant of the fact that yes, our history has been marred with a lot of political violence and conflict, I, of course, at some extent, credit the NRM for, of course, bringing us a relative peace in quotes. But using the legitimacy tool of political violence to get legitimacy from Ugandans is something that has been widespread right from 1986. Let me just give us quick history. You know, we Ugandans, most of us, our memories is popular memory. We do not have the academic history which majority of Ugandans do not have. Around 1980, in the 1980s, there was a gentleman called Dr. Kayira. Dr. Kayira was the Minister of Energies. Dr. Kayira was arraigned before court, and of course they applied for bail and the judiciary then released him. President Museveni, in his words, called out the Uganda Law Society and said, the Uganda Law Society is a group of goons that has granted bail to individuals who he believed are terrorists to Ugandans. Now, that was the judiciary of then, the Law Society of then. They stood firm and spoke, and of course affiliated with majority of what the spirit of the law says. But what do we have today? The Law Society of then stood strong, and the Law Society of today is still standing strong. But is the judiciary standing strong? Definitely, that's the conversation we have to have. But what I'm trying to show you is the political violence that this government is trying to use in terms of bribery, in terms of arresting people, in terms of beating up people, in terms of abductions. That is just from history. But something that we need to note, which I think is very critical, is our history has shown majority of Ugandans. We Ugandans, we have just been accomplices. We have never been part of a struggle, part of a liberation. The fact that we have always been accomplices to the struggle and never at the center of a struggle, voices like that of Dr. Sarah Bireete and other individuals, Yvonne Tumusime, and also called, as Fanon would refer to them as national intellectuals, are very important. Now, in a scenario whereby you silence those voices, the voices that are supposed to help the wananchi, the ordinary person who doesn't know their rights and freedoms, to understand what the law provides or articulates for them, it then puts us in a very sorry state. It puts us in a state whereby we are a failed state, because voices are supposed to offer reason and call out the government when they're going wrong are silenced. It therefore puts us, as I've told you, in a situation that...
Drake, if you allow me, you see,
yes,
when you say Ugandans oftentimes are never part of the struggle, but you also say that it also gives government the chance to target specific voices that tend to come up, and you mentioned a couple of them there. In what ways could Ugandans actually show up to be part of the struggle you talk about? And in any case, who are Ugandans versing in this particular struggle you highlight?
All right. When I say Ugandans have always been accomplices and never been at the center of the struggle, what I mean is that we have actually never been part of an entire liberation or revolution. Even the NRM in 1986, they claimed that they had the majority of Ugandans at their disposal. But let's face the reality. It was a few individuals who came up together and said, we need to liberate Uganda. And now they tell you today that we liberated you. That wasn't a liberation. It was a struggle of some individuals who thought Uganda could be better. Here we are. The fight that they went for in the bush has failed. They have done something for this country 40 years later, but they're taking us back 50 years down the road. So the conversation now that we need to have on how Ugandans need to get involved, it's unfortunate that our generation, you and me, the generation that was born under this regime, the generation that has only seen one government, we have been unfortunate that we have, first of all, not had the opportunity to study civics, to study political science in our institutions. Now, those particular curriculums that should have opened up our minds and given us an opportunity to understand why exactly we should be part of the struggle is an opportunity, or it's an opportunity that some of us didn't have. So now this creates a vacuum, and that is why you need voices like that of Dr. Sarah Bireete to rise up and awaken the masses, because power actually belongs to the people. That is captured in the Constitution in Article 1. So if power belongs to us and we must determine how we should be governed, then a scenario whereby you go ahead and violate, you go ahead and curtail someone's individual right of freedom of expression, of freedom of association, then it kills the essence of the Constitution that you went and promulgated in 1995. So voices like you and mine, voices like that of Tumusime, voices like that of Yvonne, is necessary in this struggle, because those voices help awaken Ugandans who do not know these things. But also I think for us, the so-called elites, we now therefore need to get down to the ordinary person. We need to go down to the trenches and engage with the people. You know, Museveni is in position to maintain the power that he has maintained because he understood these things. If you read his dissertation that focused on Fanon's theory of violence, he talks about having a successful revolution. And I don't want to go into those details. But what we then need to do as a generation, one, we need to create that critical mass. And we can only create that critical mass of young people when we go ahead and read information that, first of all, emancipate and liberate our mind. Now, when we do so, it is upon us to, first of all, help educate the other masses. Appear on various channels, write if you can, do all you can to help the ordinary person understand what they need to do. If voices like that of Bireete is silenced, if voices like that of Kyagulanyi is silenced, then it leaves us in a situation of capture, and we don't want that. That is why we as humans, we have naturally intrinsic that we are always in a survival state. So when push comes to shove, because Ugandans are almost having it, it's not yet there. You have a few individuals who are now having it, and it's here. In a situation whereby all Ugandans are feeling it, and that time is about to come, we must be ready. So we need to create that critical mass. Lastly, the issue of leadership, I think it is very critical. I was having a conversation with Ambassador Edith Sempala about the character of leaders that we therefore need to have. The character, oftentimes we fail to identify character of individuals. And I think I asked her this question. Before you were you supported this government, you believed in this government. Why? Why now? It's like I failed to understand the character. And that is something that we need to identify, the character of leaders that we put in positions of power. As Dr. Sarah said, no one lives more than the life cycle of a nation. So you fold Uganda here, we'll leave Uganda here, and Uganda will be here many more years to come. So all of us have a role to play in nation building. When it comes to civil liberties, all of us have that right. It is inherent upon us. By virtue of birth as a Ugandan, you get those rights. Right. So it shouldn't be taken away or curtailed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Drake, for that. And it's quite an extensive explanation of that particular situation. And Yvonne, I want to come back to you. You see, we keep discussing curtailing of civil liberties, denial of freedom of expression, the press, detentions, and a lot of things, including extrajudicial killings. And my question to you now is, first of all, if, like we say, it is the state that is interested in this, what is the end goal? What is the interest of the state in making sure that the citizens cannot speak, citizens cannot be free with their families, citizens cannot get the information they want from journalists? What is the end goal in this? But two, if this is with us, like it is, we may confirm, what is the fighting chance for Ugandans who are out there? The Electoral Commission told us we have about 21 million voters. What is the fighting chance for these Ugandans against these illegalities that happen to them? And in any case, do they have a chance of victory? Yvonne.
Yeah, thank you so much, Philip. The end goal for a state taking away the liberties of citizens, especially with the kind of state that we've had in power for the past 40 years. But also we've realized it has been a long history for Uganda as well, from previous presidents as well. It's definitely to entrench themselves into power. They've mastered the art of stifling dissent. They've mastered the art of silencing citizens. They've militarized every single sector. They've militarized every single process because they know and believe in the skill of intimidation to silence its people. So the end goal is definitely to entrench themselves into power, to remain here as the leaders of this country for as long as possible, not even leaders, but rulers of this country for as long as possible. So it's definitely the end goal. It's why I've talked about the militarization, but also it's the reason why there have been no intentional processes to mentor capable leadership to take over. There's been no intentional steps towards civic education, and it has led to civic education completely being wiped away in Uganda, like my colleague has said, because they do not have people to understand what it takes to build systems that can bring in continuous changing or progressive leadership, but also for citizens to fail to understand what proper accountability mechanisms look like. Because I mean, if this is the only fighting chance we have, then it means that they've also mastered how to snip it from the root before it even stems into something that is capable of completely wiping it out. So the intention is definitely to entrench themselves into power. We've had Museveni several times talking about how he will still for opposition to a point where it's very useless. So that also the nature of leaders that are intentionally being groomed to enter most of these institutions is still intentional. It's to manage how this country is run. It's to manage how people react. It's to manage how leaders react, because the only thing they can do now is as we'd call it in informal English, kiss the emperor's ass, which is definitely the executive that has hoarded power to itself and made sure that every other institution in Uganda fails to operate the way it's supposed to operate, because they know the minute any institution has independence, they are likely to follow a certain way that was not in alignment with what the executive wants. So it's for them to entrench themselves into power, to introduce forceful monarchies, as we're seeing rumors are creeping up about the president's son taking root into the leadership circles, being slowly entrenched. Or I mean, these are rumors. I don't want them to pick me up saying that I've also entrenched it. But again, we are citizens. We have understanding. We have wisdom. We can see what's happening. It's us slowly realizing that they are building a slow wave of a monarchy where their children now take over leadership, as if citizens have no say in it, as if we are now all part of the backyard of a family that is deciding around a fireplace who should lead the family next or who should do something next. And it's very unfortunate that this is where we are. So definitely that's the end goal of a system like Museveni's. It's an end goal that has been a system for several other leaders that have been here before him. It's us realizing now that Uganda in particular has never had any proper peaceful transition of power, and that again we are seeing the brunt end of everything, because we have to find ways, despite what has been done to us, to find ways to survive, to continue a nation that is being destroyed by a few selfish people, to see what our fighting chance is. So our fighting chance for Ugandans definitely is to keep fighting. I've seen the level of voter apathy going up, and it made me truly sad. It made me truly sad, because this is something definitely that the state wants to happen. It's intentional, driving us to that level of silence, to a point that we're not even interested in participating in democracy, to make sure that we are the ones electing the kind of leaders we want into place, but also seeing people slowly participating in conversations like, is democracy really necessary for a country like Uganda? That what should be happening, what should be shaping the nature of politics in a country like this? But we need to keep fighting, using all possible means. The work Sarah Bireete has been doing is very important. And if it wasn't important, they would have never picked her up. Using digital tools for advocacy, using the modes we can in every single way to educate the masses, to awaken them to understand that there's an intentional leadership that is the lead cause of their poverty, that is the lead cause of why institutions are not working, that is the lead cause of whatever issues are happening, and it's intentional to happen that way. And citizens need to wake up, not just in terms of just fighting economically, but politically, that the vote is very important and that numbers have never failed. Even if someone keeps rigging, we have a duty. We can do it as citizens. We can rise up and say, listen, we're going to these ballots. We're going to overwhelm whatever system is attempting to rig elections, and it will show that everyone showed up and voted, and that certain votes are going to a certain candidate, and this is what it shows, to a point that by the time they're even attempting to rig, it will take them days to show us that they've rigged and actually managed to do it. Numbers are important. We need to show up. If we give up now, I'm going to be very honest with Ugandans. This is how a state entrenches itself. This is how monarchies build themselves, on the silence of the backs of citizens. We cannot afford it right now. So we need to keep fighting. We need to keep pressing for the release of all the prisoners that have been put in jail, we need to keep fighting for laws to progress, past the harmful colonial laws that were left here, that the state, or brutal as it is attempting to cling on to silence citizens. And yet they, at the end of the day, there will be the same people telling you that, oh, this country needs to find a way to decolonize. But when it's convenient for them, they will fight so hard to maintain laws that do not make sense, that colonialists were using actually to suppress resistance. The law of drilling is very shocking that it actually still operates in Uganda. I was shocked. These are laws that are intentionally there by the state to stifle resistance, the same way it was stifling Black people and Africans from resisting colonial rule. So we need to keep fighting. We cannot afford the silence. We do not have that privilege as Ugandans.
All right. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for that. And we are still on Community Voices Uganda here on Civic Space TV, and we're having a conversation around civil liberties in our country. We are looking at how the state is using the instruments of power at its disposal to suppress and repress voices of dissent. We are looking at how many players in the public space are being intimidated, people are arrested, people are beaten, and some are even killed. And we are trying to make sense of how Uganda can survive through such circumstances, but also in the end thrive and have a country that serves all its peoples. And joining on that conversation is Douglas Grekonen, Tumsime Kakuru, Yvonne Bambara, and Robert Benon Jurua. Robert, thank you for joining us. And I want to hear from you at this moment. First of all, what do you think about the state of civil liberties in this country? And certainly, in your assessment, do you think that Uganda is doing enough? Ugandans are doing enough in terms of protecting that belongs to them? And if they are not, what can be done? Robert.
Thank you, Philip. Can I be heard?
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you for this space and for the panelists that have also shared their insights. I'm grateful. The question is a very broad one, of course, but the simple answer is no. We want to start from there. It doesn't sound like it is any clause. The state and the situation begs for so much that needs to be done, and I can maybe bring it to your attention that for some of us who went to school sometime, there used to be a subject in lower primary called civic education. That was quite a while ago, and that was an interesting moment when people, students or children for that matter, used to be educated on the things that we as CCG, as maybe those that now of course are elite and are aware, are simply getting from having to read it for yourself or doing your own research. And you see, that is already a question that has to be looked into. If then there was civic education as an offer or a part of a curriculum, it was easily removed But of course, you can also ask the question as to, was there any resistance to that effect? Or rather, did people instead start doing it for themselves? You see, that is a question that has to be answered. And the answer, of course, is no, because nothing has ever come to our attention that it happened and we needed to, get back to that level. But of course, now, in light of the question and in light of the topic that we are discussing, we are going to answer that question in segments regarding how constitutional rights have been upheld. We want to also remember the history of Uganda. When we are discussing constitutionalism, we need to all to look back at the constitutional history of the country. We are coming from a moment of turmoil for us to get this constitution. And this constitution we're talking about is, if I'm not mistaken, number 5 or number 4 from the time of independence. You can imagine just within the span of 1960 to 1995, we have 4 to 5 constitutions. And you realize that for any change of constitution or for any amendment, there has been a lot that has taken place. And particularly for this constitution, we realize that the government that is setting this constitution in motion has had to undergo a revolution for it to draft the constitution. And let's not be forgetful that at the time that the constitution was being either discussed or promulgated, almost half of the nation was, if not at war, or unsettled. Let's remember, the 1995 Constitution came in at a time when the north, or the greater part of Uganda from the north and the West Nile, was at war. That's number 1. Number 2 is there was a lot of fighting from the far west. And then you're going to say that the CA delegation, if you remember, the guys we're talking about who are now senior citizens were the ones who were a part of the CA delegation. We ask ourselves, how was it possible that views were sought from the citizenry to come up with one document for which all citizens must follow the law? That's number 1. That already begs a question of whether the spirit of the constitution formulation was in one accord. Number 1. Number 2, of course, we say that the individual that came up with the constitution or the leadership was a revolutionary. Number 2, the question we're answering is more rhetoric, because it's going to beg into questions that will seek answers for us to get an answer. My view is, what else, apart from the constitution and its implementation, can we, with authority, cite to have been the success of this constitution, let alone the basics? The basics are that, yes, there is law. We have structures, we have governance structures, we have government organs that are operational, there is a judiciary, yes and no, of course. The point is, in the success of the constitution has to be cited from its workability to render the object, the main object. If you look at the preamble looks first at the history and then it looks at the solution. But we are seeing that straight into 1998, after 3 years of its promulgation, issues are arising. The upcoming opposition by that time, of course, led by Dr. Kiza Besigye, But don't forget that Paul Kawanga Samogere was at the forefront. If you remember, okay, we might not, but history will teach us that Paul Kawanga Samogere didn't have his campaign easy. That already showed a little bit of breaking of the law.
So, Robert, if you allow me, so briefly, when I listen to you, you seem to be saying that even before we look at what is happening today, there seems to be about two things. One, particular defects with the law itself, and of course, imagine from the fact that it could have not been a largely popular constitution, given, like you said, that half of the nation was either at war or unsettled. But two, you seem to be saying there were some hidden intentions, even with bringing up this constitution, and certainly, respectively, if those intentions are not met, then the persons that were in charge of that have to make sure they tune the day-to-day running of the country to that they intended to achieve with the constitution. Is that what you're saying? And if you can be a bit brief with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go back to a certain headline that one of the government officials, now the former Prime Minister, Amama Patrick Mbabazi, cited. The NRM is here for 60 years. If you remember that. That was a statement laughed at, but little did we know that therefore there was, certain ideas behind the Constitution. The Constitution is something that has been used to basically entrench the ruling party into the government. And that, for me, is an answer, the very first answer.
Thank you, Robert, for that thought you have given us, and certainly a couple of questions to think about, and for the future, see how we can relate with them. And Councillor Musime, I want to quickly come to you. I know our time is quite spent, but I want to hear from you now. See, you told us about the conduct of judicial officers and how many things are not happening the way they're supposed to be happening. And popularly, we keep talking about the Kizza Besigye issue. We're now talking about the Sarah Bireete issue. We talk about those NUP members you represent, but also many other Ugandans that get to the judiciary and judicial officers to seek redress, to be assisted whenever their rights are infringed on and upon. And I want to ask you, if the judiciary is in such a sorry state, like we seem to agree on this panel, where should Ugandans go whenever they have challenges, whenever their rights are infringed on? What can be done, either to reclaim the judiciary or maybe an alternative to the judiciary that Ugandans can use to make sure they seek redress whenever they have challenges? Council.
Yeah, thank you, Philip, once again. Well, it is so unfortunate that the place we were left with where we can secure our liberties was court. But as of now, it is hard even to feel safe while in court because of the kind of judicial officers that are now in place. We call them cadre officers because they no longer follow the law in adjudicating justice. When a person is arrested, his solace is just in court. That court can entertain his application for his personal liberty before the trial commences. But you see, the problem starts with the police itself. For example, why would the police arrest a person before concluding investigations? I'll give an example of the Sarah case. Sarah was arrested on a Tuesday. She was produced in court yesterday, Friday. But the prosecution told the court that the investigation are still ongoing. They are not complete. So why would they rush an arrest? Because if they had arrested her with the concluded investigations, the trial would commence, and maybe we have a quick and smooth process in the trial. But the unfortunate part is that these judicial officers no longer follow the law. they have some orders they follow, because if they are following the law, there are some things that they would not even think about in making decisions. Because when you go to court and you apply for bail, you want just that personal liberty for a time pending your trial. But when the trial commences and you are found guilty, then you should be convicted and sentenced like that. But now it is a trend that a person from police can never get bail in court, as we say. It is from police, then to prison, then you come back and then you can try to apply for bail. It is so unfortunate that now you be better to remain at police maybe for a police bond than going to court. Because what would be the purpose of you being presented to court when you cannot be even allowed to make a bail application, or the unnecessary adjournments for replies by the state? Because we are all lawyers who got court prepared to argue our cases. I don't know where the notion comes from that the prosecution has that time, to go think about what they want to allege and then have time to prepare for it. But moving forward, I think it is our duty as Ugandans to hold the judiciary accountable and to speak the truth and tell them what they are not doing well, like trying to correct them to bring them back to order. Because if the judiciary is sided, for example, you see even the kind of trials we are having of late, they are one-sided. It's as if someone wearing a red shirt or red cape is an offense itself, but the same acts done by the people in the opposition are the same. Actually, even some are worse than those done by the people in the opposition. But because these people are from the government side, and they love praises, so they might do any offenses or something of that nature. But because they are government, they are NRM, they are yellow, they will go without any punishment or any task. That's the unfortunate part we have. But if we Ugandans still believe that we have the power as guaranteed to us by the Constitution, then we have that power to also hold accountable these judicial officers. The cadres, for example, there are cadres in the judiciary as of now that their aim is just to keep political opponents of the state and then have them in prison in fear of the elections. It is so hard for us, but as lawyers and as activists, we should not relent on calling them to order. And I think the best is to decolonize the judiciary, because the judiciary is under colonization by the regime machinery and the state. If we decolonize, we shout about what is not going on well, we speak about it, in these spaces as we can say. I think we can still have a better judiciary than we do have now.
All right. Thank you so much, Councillor Tumusime, for that. And Yvonne, I wanted to pick a quick thought from you. Earlier on, you told us about how people have to pay allegiance to particular centers of power, and you, in precise terms, called it kissing the emperor's ass. And I want to pick a quick comment about that. See, there's no shortage of examples of leaders and governments that have behaved in that manner, and both within the East African region and the wider African continent, but also even elsewhere in Asia. And whether you talk about Yahya Jammeh or Blaise Compaoré or Bashir in the north here, or Ben Ali in Tunisia, all these leaders have had this sort of bringing the state just to themselves. And I want to ask, the ending of many of those leaders has not been so beautiful and nice, but you keep seeing the appetite of leaders to behave in the exact same way. And I ask, what insurance do they have in choosing that specific path, and how long can it survive for them delivering what they seek to achieve in using that mechanism? Yvonne?
I think majority of the times we've constantly reminded leaders that they forget that those who fail to learn from history often repeat it. And once they're in power, they don't seem to assume that the same way so many leaders have fallen before them, that they're likely to face a fate. We've seen so many strong leaders fall, and I don't know what level it reaches for these people to become so entrenched within power itself that they become extremely comfortable, to the likelihood of how much power people have to be able to oust them, to be able to remove them, but also for the natural effect of what power always does. It will destroy you itself. You reach a point where you get so comfortable, you start entrenching yourself, you're trying to put monarchies of your children, you are brutalizing citizens, because in the moment you feel that with all the power you have, there's no possibility of you ever falling. There's no possibility of your rule ever coming to end. So they become so comfortable within whatever they are doing. We've seen so many military governments as well fall, and I think that's where the current regime in Uganda is assuming it's accumulating all its power from. They're assuming that the more they entrench the military into all aspects of governance, into all aspects of social life, of cultural, of political, of economic, all the different sectors are largely now being infiltrated by the army, of course, to entrench itself, to show Ugandans that, no matter how much they try to do, the military is here to stay. But we forget that also within this military itself, there are so many people that there are a couple of people that would also want to see the right thing done, or if not even the right thing to do, there are people that are power hungry themselves, and they're looking for ways to oust these people and entrench themselves as well. So most times at the end of the day, something likely natural is likely to happen. I don't want to be the prophet of doom, much as I would love to be, but it will naturally come to an end. And I can assure Ugandans that, much as we are fighting and much as we put our voice out there, that power itself eventually destroys itself from what it's doing. So no matter how much it entrenches, no matter how much we are being militarized, no matter how much is happening, to silence the voices of citizens, to show them that, whatever the constitution put forward as the power belonging to the people has created that illusion for us to assume we have it, but of course intentionally so, that we actually don't have it, and the military is doing the job that everyone is meant to do. It will eventually come to an end, because there's no government that can run on one kind of system like the military without destroying itself in the end. Power is always able to destroy itself in the end. So naturally, we are going to wait for that. Of course,
Thank you. Before if you allow me, just briefly, you see, in the recent past, we've seen a lot of what you can call citizen-led revolutions, where they talk about Sudan itself about 3 or 4 years ago, where they talk about Bangladesh that they just concluded here, or they talk about the shake-up that happened in Kenya with the Gen Zs and many other places across the world. Do you see any chance of that happening in Uganda?
I think Uganda is slightly at times out of the ambit of what so many other states are, because we've had a leader who has managed to entrench the power of the military. So again, at times I try to encourage Ugandans to avoid falling into the trap of military tactics of the revolution, because at the end of the day, it's us who face the brunt end of what violence is capable of doing. It's us who pay in blood. It's us who pay in with our lives. It's us who pay with our economy, with leaders who do not care. Uganda has been largely militarized compared to some of the nations you're mentioning, compared to Kenya, compared to a couple of nations. So at times, I don't think a revolution will happen like that. And at times, that's why I keep telling people, some of it might have to naturally occur the way it's supposed to occur for Ugandans to be set free. The most we can do is continue to agitate against what is wrong, but also to attempt to mentor what good leadership looks like. It breaks me when I'm watching the kind of leaders we have now, and they can't distinguish between proper leadership and leadership for money. And of course, they'll attribute it to the fact that it's a global trend. But we are setting ourselves up, you people. We are setting ourselves up. It's not sustainable. We cannot do it for the future. So we need to find a way to learn to mentor what good leadership looks like, but also what revolutions look like outside what military violence is. Majority of the times, of course, the military has monopolized what violence is, because when we attempt to do the same thing back, we see how much we get brutalized for the same thing. So again, at times, Ugandans might preach about violence. They might preach about the Malcolm way of doing things, but we know what this government is capable of. So who pays in the end? It's Ugandans with blood, it's the citizens with blood. So we have to find ways to be just as smart. And I think we have. I don't want this government to take away the wins we've so far done. We've found ways to outsmart the government. You've seen what Bobby Wine is doing. He's drawn crowds without even fighting so hard. He's drawn crowds to him because Ugandans realize, that it's the power of the voice, it's the power of mobilization, it's a power of unity that can bring us against most of these people. And eventually, the army is not that big. It's not that big. They need to learn discipline. They need to keep their business out of our business. And eventually, slowly by slowly, if we can win majority of them to our side as well, because they themselves are seeing what is happening. And I can tell you, even the internal agitations within this NRM party, within some of these people we assume have hoarded power already, are already starting to show on top. The cracks are showing. So I don't want to encourage Ugandans to go out there to shed blood. I will never do that. We need to have a country after Museveni. We need to have people outlive a dangerous regime. And I can assure you that we have so many other ways of doing it rather than fall into the trap of what this regime has done, because they feel a revolution should be people picking up the gun and going to the bush just like they did. Pick up your flag and wave it. Pick up your flag and resist. Go to media and make noise. Show the world what's happening. Show people what's wrong with the state. Show everyone that we are awake. We are aware of what's happening. We are awake that they're abusing our rights. And before we know it, eventually, majority of what we feel is actually putting us down, or what we feel is taking away our freedoms. For what I see with Museveni, it's naturally coming to him. I don't want to say it directly, but it's naturally coming to him. We need to find other ways to keep fighting with violence.
All right. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for that. And colleagues, our time is really very, very much fast spent. And I see we have to use about the next 12 minutes to come to the end of the conversation. But I want us to use this very last part of the show to talk about the election. We have about 10 days to election day, presidents and members of parliament, but also leading into the other electoral levels, the local councils and special interest groups. And quickly, I want you to, each of you, to speak to us about, first of all, what Ugandans should prepare for on election day, but two, what you think actually election day, election week is going to look like. And in any case, if those of you that are bold enough to tell us who you think is going to win the election. I'll start with you, Drake. What should, as a human rights officer, what should Ugandans look out for in terms of their human rights election week, and certainly what is going to happen after the election? If you can make it quite brief in about 2 minutes.
All right. I think the most important thing that every Ugandan should partake in is go and exercise your right and vote. Go and vote. Vote, stay and protect your vote. It is not a crime to be around the polling station. You can just keep 20 meters away from the polling station. Vote, cast your vote, protect your vote. It is your constitutional right. It's your constitutional duty. It is therefore, of course, us people who are on the sidelines as CSOs, it's our responsibility to always tell people what exactly is going on with objectivity. We are non-partisan. We tell people what is the way it is. So as we cast our votes, as we go ahead and choose the leaders that we think are best fit to represent our ideologies, our views, let us do so with objectivity. We need to have leaders who will serve us right, and not leaders who will just give us lip service and at the end of the day do the contrary. So for me, as a parting shot and as my concluding remark, it's a call out, first of all, to all the young people out there who are interested in having a better Uganda. It's imperative that we participate in debates that enlighten us and open our minds. Of course, you cannot engage in those debates without reading as much as possible. Not just, it's okay to go through an education, but that is not enough to emancipate you and liberate your mind. So it is my call to all the young people who are willing to see a better Uganda to engage in debates that move this country forward. And as you do so, I would also call upon all the young people out there to read about our history, read about the region, East Africa, read about the continent, because there is a wave. There's a statement that once sounded or made waves in the pre-independent Africa, that Africa is ripe for a revolution. So I would say Uganda is ripe for a revolution, but we can only have that revolution when we have the right message and the right leaders to push us through there. Otherwise, it has been lovely having you all on the call. I will state this here that we need to have all political prisoners released. As the Center for Constitutional Governance, we would love to have our executive director back to continue the work that she's doing. And of course, to everyone on this call, it's been lovely having you all. Looking forward to more engagements. Otherwise, Happy New Year, and it's been lovely being on the call. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you so much, Drake, and we will pray for that Dr. Sarah Bireete is able to get her freedom back. Robert, election day, election week, what do you see happening, and what should Ugandans look out for, quite briefly?
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, there is not so much light at the end of the tunnel in as far as the expectations are concerned, because of the preparations, as we have all seen. But that does not take away our right. As Drake has put it, this is the best opportunity to be had, and that means go and vote. Go and vote, protect your vote, and hold back from any violence whatsoever. Like Yvonne has put it as well, and Dr. put it, there is no government that outlasts or outlives the nation itself. So there has been a lot that has happened before us. There is surely going to be a lot that is going to happen after us. This is just a moment in time, and posterity will have it that you did have a say in the leadership of the country by you casting your vote. It doesn't matter to whom. What matters is you have done your part. And that is also what is said in the Bible, and that is the same said as a responsible citizen should do. Let us be cognizant of the times. We have a whole world ahead of us. We shouldn't stick to the coming 15th of January. In light of everything that has happened, we hope that we shall have a peaceful transition of power. It doesn't matter the person coming. What we should do is be steadfast and get to know about your country more. It is very important for you to go back into history as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for that. And Council Tumusime, I know the election is around the corner, and suddenly you could be preparing for petitions that will be challenging the results and many other things. But just from you, what should Ugandans look out for? What should your clients look out for? And suddenly, what do you anticipate to see election day and the days that follow?
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, as we go for this election, we need to think about 2 or 3 things. One, is the situation we are in the best we need as a country? 2, are we comfortable with the way we are being governed or ruled? And 3, should we continue like this or we need a change? If you ask yourself those 3 questions and you get the answers, then it should guide you on how to proceed and vote. But I want all Ugandans and peace-loving countrymen and women to think about our Uganda beyond this election. If we have seen military men beating up unarmed people innocent as they are going to rallies, and you want to trust them to secure your votes, then I think you are just sleeping and dreaming. What we need to do is we observe the law. We go to the polling stations, we vote, and we keep around the polling stations 20 meters as provided for by the law. Because these people who want to dictate otherwise are not the law, and they are not the only Ugandans that have done such. We need to we need to be more conscious, because the more arrests and kidnaps are likely to happen before or during or even after the election, but that should not scare us. We need to keep raising our flag so high for the love of our country and for the peace we need to look at. Petitions are ongoing. Even up to now, we are in court for some of the denominated candidates by the Electoral Commission. But I think what we need to do most is first secure this vote. We vote and we protect the vote up to the time of declaration of the results at the polling station. Then we can go back home knowing what we have done as people. But we should keep peaceful and look forward to a better Uganda. And I think this is the best time we have to change this narrative and bring back power to us, the people. I thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Councillor. And lastly, Yvonne, election, unfortunately, we shall be unable to tick your name on the ballot paper for presidency, but perhaps you advise us on who else we can look out for, and certainly what you anticipate to see.
Very unfortunate. I want to remind Ugandans that it's not business as usual, that we need exceptional people to do exceptional service, but also to do exceptional work. It can no longer be just about protecting our jobs. It can no longer be about being neutral, because neutrality only serves and entrenches brutal power. I want to remind people that, this is a period to stand for what is right. If we don't shape it now, there's no one going to do it for us. So I'm very disappointed that we still have judiciary that are acting out of the ambits of their work, because they need to see this particular period as a period that is not usual. So they can't be doing business as usual. We can't just be doing work in terms of just protecting our jobs, in terms of protecting only the livelihood. We need to do work out of the ordinary. We need to learn honesty beyond what we've been taught, because I think that this government has taught us way more than just corruption, way more than brutality. It has also taught us that as individuals, we need to shape what honesty looks like, for, not just for governance, but for the different systems that we are controlling. So it becomes very important that we start from a ground of all of us being honest. What does honesty look like for the leadership of this country? What does honesty look like for the future of Uganda? And what does a point beyond neutrality, a point beyond silence, to that particular voice saying enough is enough, this is not right, and I'm choosing to speak out, I'm choosing to do what I can to carry my end of the bargain of what change should look like for this country. So I feel that Ugandans should remember that. They should carry it forward as they go to the polls, that it begins with a single particular effort, a single vote, a single person's interest for the right thing to prevail over what we've been taught, over what we've been constructed into as entire societies and as a nation in general.
All right. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for that. And once again, colleagues, thank you so much for joining the call. Douglas Prekonen from the Center for Constitutional Governance, thank you so much for your time and for agreeing to share your thoughts with us. Mr. Robert Benon Jirua, thank you so much for your time and for the thoughts you've shared with us on this conversation. Council Tumsime Kakuru, thank you so much for your time and for the thoughts you've shared with us here today. And indeed, Councillor Yvonne Bambara, thank you so much for your time and for the thoughts you have had to share with us on this conversation. And we continue to say that we call for the release of all persons that are illegally held in police cells, in prison cells, and anywhere in this country. And most specifically, we call for the release of Dr. Sarah Bireete, the ED of the Center for Constitutional Governance, Dr. Kizza Besigye, and many other persons that are held in there without due process being followed. Special thanks to India again, the Center for Constitutional Governance, for being a part of this conversation, and special thanks to the technical team, and most importantly to you, our loyal viewers of Civic Space TV, and indeed the Community Voices Uganda. I want to say that we promise to continue making a contribution and organizing such conversations so that Ugandans like these I have here today are able to make a contribution to deciding what their country should look like going forward, making sure there is freedom and there is growth, development, and indeed the thriving of the peoples of Uganda. My name is Philip Melissa, and may you all have freedom always.